Order, order. Take your seat. Senator Ekal. What's your point of order, Senator Bogisho?
Mr. Speaker, if although now Honorable Murkomen has left, but Mr. Speaker, some of the claims that he has made here needed to be withdrawn because it's an attack on the chair, Speaker. And I think, Mr. Speaker, I started by saying if we allow some of these small dilatory substances that come, Mr. Speaker, it will grow bigger, and until people can now direct their eyes to the chair and almost themselves desecrate the chair. Mr. Speaker, can I just request, Mr. Speaker, that you take us back to where we belong, in the House of Order. Thank you.
Senator Orengo. Senator Orengo
I'm also rising on a little point. Is a constitutional and a matter of procedure. And Mr. Speaker, I'm getting worried about the clerks because there are certain procedural issues that are making us now talk without conclusion. Because at the beginning, there was a report by the chairman of the Security Committee. That report was given, and before there was any reaction to it, there was a motion for adjournment. It would have been important, and I'm very worried that you're on trial. You have been put on trial. And we must distinguish between what are the charges against the Speaker and what is within your powers and what are within the powers of the House. And I want to suggest to you that had we been allowed to deal with a very important report that was given by the chairman of the National Security Committee, there would have been no lamentation. We are now engaged in lamentations. And lamenting, you can do it forever. And somebody can be sitting there and saying, let them talk until tomorrow. But I don't want us to be the house of lamentation. In regard to the report which was given by the chairman of the National Security Committee, we should not be taken it for granted. If it was in a court of law, before we take any step, we should be asking ourselves, what do we do with the contempt? Honorable Senator Haniri had talked to you on the issue of contempt. That's where your power is, how to deal with the contempt before we deal with the question of adjournment. There's a great violation against the dignity of the Senate, which has not been dealt with. And now you are talking generally, and we can talk generally until tomorrow without resolution. I like the speeches I'm hearing, but at the end of the day, they signify nothing because nothing will come out of it. And I know of men and women who could speak in this house like Shikuku for a month. But at the end of the day, there was questions of relevance. What can the Senate or Parliament decide? Because Parliament does not act in vain. Yes. We went for an adjournment for a purpose. Yes. Have we achieved the purpose of that adjournment? So, Mr. Speaker, I want to invite you to look at Standing Order Article 125 of the Constitution. There are two things that are within the powers of this House. And those powers are equal to the powers of the High Court. And you can address us on those two powers because the rest, those ones you can direct. And you can direct them now, not tomorrow. The first is to not just invite, is to summon. And I can tell you, Mr. Speaker, when the Parliament summons, it does not matter whether you're on leave, the summons of a Parliament, in my view, in fact, actually supersedes the summons of the High Court. because we make the law. We make the law. So, Mr. Speaker, the CS was summoned and other government officials were summoned. They did not turn up. What do we do? Because we cannot just let it rest there. And some of them say, let them talk. They can talk until tomorrow. And they can come tomorrow again and they talk and complain. Mr. Speaker, I've had an incident when in the old time when KANU was what it is, that a speaker put a minister using the orderlies for 2 hours waiting for a committee because he was in contempt. He said, let him rest there until the speaker decides what to do with him. So, Mr. Speaker, if that someone has not been complied with, the second provision is that you can enforce attendance. You can enforce attendance, and there are consequences. So, Mr. Speaker, I believe that it is within your power now to enforce the attendance of the cabinet secretary, and even the Director of Public Prosecutions, because, Parliament, in his oversight role, we oversight all institutions, including the presidency. We oversight all these institutions. So I invite you, instead of lamenting, that you can stand up in that throne where you sit to deal with the contempt. And the contempt has been committed in the face of the Senate because you gave that direction. And I saw you standing up when you were giving that direction. The second issue, which is separate and distinct, and I want to persuade you that the first issue you can deal with. The second issue, it is upon us as members of the Senate. To adjourn or not to adjourn, it is not within your power, Mr. Speaker. I want to advise you, if you may take my advice. The power to adjourn, it is our powers. And we are going to invite you to exercise those powers, to allow exercise those powers to decide whether to adjourn or not to adjourn. And I addressed you earlier in the morning on why we needed to adjourn. So, Mr. Speaker, I invite you to first of all deal with the question of the contempt. And then when we finish that one, we come to the question of adjournment, where we can also address you sequentially, and we finish with the business of the House as it is in the order paper.
Yes, Senator Wetangula, is it for a point of order? There's a point of order. Then Malachi, it's a point of order. Okay. Okay, I will give you point of order.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to join Senator Orengo of Siaya. And I want to draw your attention to Article 153 of the Constitution. 153.3. A cabinet secretary, whether on leave or not, shall attend, not may, shall attend before a committee of the National Assembly or the Senate when required by the committee and answer any question concerning a matter for which the cabinet secretary is responsible. Read that, Mr. Speaker, with Article 125. It vests the authority of the High Court with penal consequences on any public servant who is accountable to this House who does not appear to answer any question. I agree with Senator Orengo, Mr. Speaker, that we have totally mixed two issues. The issue of the report, I belong to the committee of Senator Haji, but I was not able to attend the meeting because I was attending some other important issues elsewhere. Mr. Speaker, when Senator Haji gave us the report, this House should have ventilated on it, and made a decision on what to do with public servants who decide not to honor invitations to Parliament, which invitations can graduate to summons. The debate, Mr. Speaker, was veering towards a situation where innuendos are being thrown on the floor like you bear responsibility for the servants not coming. We want committees to exercise the authority given by this Constitution and the standing orders. All we need is to tell the clerk, send summons. And I've seen committees fine ministers, fine governors who don't appear. The arrest of colleagues, Mr. Speaker, is a very grave matter. Whatever the reasons, one cannot fail to resist the temptation to think and all the minister needs to do is to come and satisfy the committee and the House that it isn't malicious if he has different reasons. But to simply ignore the invitation of the committee is ignoring the authority of this House and ignoring the power vested in this Senate by the people of Kenya. And I want to urge you, Mr. Speaker, to give direction to this based on the two articles of the Constitution I've pointed out and which Senator Orengo pointed out, and the standing orders of this House, so that we can be able to put to finality the continued disregard of this House. We have had situations, Mr. Speaker, where ministers, when they are invited to the lower house, they go running. When they are invited to this House, they give all manner of excuses. And this should not be condoned. On the issue of adjournment, Mr. Speaker, I agree fully with Senator Orengo that that is not, you cannot stop this House from adjourning a motion as a Speaker. You have no vote. All you need to do is to listen to us and leave it to us to decide whether we adjourn a debate or we don't adjourn a debate. And all issues brought to the floor of this House, Mr. Speaker, unlike the old days when the Speaker used to have a casting vote. In the 7th Parliament, I used to sit on that chair. I was a member of the panel. And we used to have a casting vote where there is a tie. That casting vote is no longer available to the Speaker. You simply listen to us, put it to us, we decide whether to go one way or the other. And whichever decision we make, Mr. Speaker, is an enhancement of democracy. And I want to urge us as Senate. We have enjoyed a tremendous reputation in this country as a House. Even my colleagues and friends like Senator Linturi, when he was promoted by the people of Meru to come to this House, from the lower house, he confided in me that he was very proud to be a senator. That is tremendously different from the House where he served previously, because he saw a lot of decorum, a lot of time for members to speak, a lot of opportunity to be listened to, and a lot of opportunity to be respected because of what we do. Let's not get carried away, my colleagues. Let's maintain that dignity. Kofi Annan used to say, I am a man with a soft voice, with a powerful message. I'm a man with a soft voice, with a powerful message. And a very soft voice can deliver a very powerful message. And that powerful message can change things. Let's try to step back from our positions of brinkmanship and maintain the dignity of this House that Kenyans love so much. If we don't do that, we will also be dragging ourselves in the same tunnel of filth that we try to avoid in being senators of this republic. Thank you.
Senator Cheriot, your point of order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I agree with the Leader of Minority, Senator James Orengo, that you need to guide this House on the issue that he has brought before you. But I'd wish to add a further one. Section 21, Mr. Speaker, of the Parliamentary Powers and Privileges Act says this about false witnesses, and I'd be inviting your ruling on the same, that any person who before any committee intentionally gives false answer to any questions material to the subject of inquiry, which may be put to him during the course of examination, shall be guilty of an offense under the Section 108 of the Penal Code. Mr. Speaker, it has been reported before this House by the Chair for Security, National Security Committee, that a public officer informed them that the minister was not available because they were on leave. But further evidence has been adduced before this House confirming that the IG was at a public function, that the minister was somewhere launching a Boda Sacco Association or something of that kind. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, we are calling upon you to further give direction in furtherance of Senator James Orengo's point on what will be done to this particular officer who misled a committee of this House. And now we are here with a stalemate on our hands because they did not give the right information. Had they been prudent and diligent to ensure that they give Senator Haji's committee the proper information, then we wouldn't be here, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, I'd be humbly requesting that you guide us with regards to that particular issue.
Senator Cherargei, what's your point of order? Then Senator Wamatangi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir, for this opportunity. When I move a motion of adjournment in the morning, and seconded by Senator Mutula Kilonzo Jr., there were specific directions that you gave. And as the mover of the motion, Mr. Speaker, having read Article 153, Article 125, that there were specific directions that were needed to be given. In the spirit, what Kofi Annan said, and I like Senator Wetangula said, he said, in the words of Kofi Annan, you don't know the value of something until you lose it. I empathize and sympathize with colleagues that have been arrested. I have been intimidated and arrested before. I can imagine the speed that Senator Malala is approaching Nakuru. It is not a good speed. I went through Kakamega, Bungoma, up to Kisumu. And I'm telling you, that car does not have brakes. So, Mr. Speaker, the other day I was arrested somewhere in Gong Road. And thanks to Senator Okongo Mugeni and most of the learned seniors here, they came. I was being taken there like an ambulance. So, Mr. Speaker, there was a specific instructions, Mr. Speaker, that you gave. You said the Committee on Security should come back with information and directions that you have taken. Mr. Speaker, for the sake of continuity, and I want to support the Leader of Minority, let us dispose of the feedback and the report of the National Security Committee chaired by Senator Haji. Then now we can move to the second adjournment motion that was given by Senator Kithure Kindiki. And Mr. Speaker, if we go that way, the cabinet ministers, the senior civil servants will respect this House. If you allow, you don't give directions on this matter today, this House will be treated like a rubber stamp in future decisions. So, Mr. Speaker, as you retreat to provide directions and orders on this matter, the minister, the IG, and other government officials who are supposed to provide answers to the adjournment motion I raised on the arrest of Senator Langat, Senator Lilegwe, and Senator Cleophas Malala. Let them come and satisfy the House that the reasons that were being arrested, which we are tempted to believe was not malicious. And I think it is very important that we separate those issues, Mr. Speaker, because it is very important for this country, Mr. Speaker. Finally, Mr. Speaker, the intimidation, coercion, and blackmailing of elected leaders will be determined by your ruling today. You know, they say, there is a paraphrasing, someone said in this House in the morning, that when they came for the Jew, I did not speak because I was not a Jew. But when everybody has been came for, when they came for the final one, there was no one to speak for you, Mr. Speaker. And I think, Mr. Speaker, please provide direction, if it is possible. The Minister of Interior, the Inspector General of Police, the Director Criminal Investigation, DCI. They must be summoned to appear before the Parliament and the Senate of the Republic of Kenya to tell the country what is happening, Mr. Speaker. It was disheartening to see senators peeping out like prisoners in their own houses, Mr. Speaker. And we let me say for the record, I am the champion of this revenue formula on 1 man, 1 vote, 1 shilling. But when it comes to impunity and forcing people to make choices, Mr. Speaker, I am afraid I will not be party to coercion and blackmail so that people can make a certain decisions. I want 1.4 billion. I want 1.4 billion to go to Nandi County, but I don't want blood and to be spilled for the people of Nandi to gain. Let us make a decision where everybody is comfortable to make the decision. And that is why in the morning, in my own wisdom, I move an adjournment for the sake of our colleagues, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, let us allow the House and the Senate as a House to make these decisions based on their own comfort, not under coercion, intimidation, blackmail. And you know, Mr. Speaker, personally, I am not afraid to be arrested. I have been arrested 4 times. I know what to do when I'm being arrested. I know quite a number of DCIOs and officers. I know how to talk to them nicely to ensure I get nice food. I don't fear arrest, but what I'm saying, please don't use this privilege. There should be a parliamentary privilege that our colleagues must be protected from, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, you are not on trial, but the decisions that you will make today will go in the history and also history of this state. Mr. Speaker, somebody said, and I think he's a good reader of the Bible, that do not fear those who kill the flesh only, but fear those who take flesh and the soul. Mr. Speaker, give direction to this House, summon the Minister of Interior, summon the Inspector General of Interior. By the way, Mr. Speaker, as I conclude, the Inspector General of Police is an appointee of this House. We vetted him. Why don't we summon him? The Minister in charge of Interior National Security is also the chairman of government projects. How can he disobey the House that he needs to partner when he's coordinating national government projects? Okay. Yeah, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, you need to rule on the adjournment motion that I gave. Mr. Speaker, make us proud once again and make Senate great again. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Kimani Wamatangi, what's your point of order then? Keep them short.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I promise to keep it short, and by that, I hope it doesn't insinuate that I'm the one who keeps them longest. But, Mr. Speaker, I wanted to, in support of what my colleagues have said, Mr. Speaker, because this is a house of not only rules, but also precedents and customs, Mr. Speaker. We have a way with which we execute our business, Mr. Speaker, and nothing would be easier, because you give very clear directions before we adjourned, that the relevant officers of government must be availed, Mr. Speaker, contacted by the committee and give a response, Mr. Speaker. And because of the tradition and customs of this House, the easiest thing, Mr. Speaker, that would have happened, Mr. Speaker, is if the committee would table to you, or to this House for that matter, either the invitation that they have sent to those individuals who are just across the road, Mr. Speaker. And then once we have that invitation, you are able, Mr. Speaker, to give very clear directions if in the event that the committee sat and overlooked the necessity to put quickly in writing and take it across, Mr. Speaker. Can you direct that they do so such that when you give orders, they are backed, Mr. Speaker? Mr. Speaker, or can the chairman confirm, Mr. Speaker, that that communication was made in a way that you can incontrovertibly yourself give clear directions, Mr. Speaker? Because were it not for the misunderstanding that is being brought here, every senator in this House, Mr. Speaker, is clear. No single senator...
What's your point of information? Keep it short, Senator Wamatangi. That's Mr. not a point of order.
No single senator in this House is for any senator's arrest. That point is settled.
What's your point of information? Do you want to be informed?
Let me finish, Mr. Speaker. I don't think I need the information because I want to finish. Mr. Speaker, my point is very, very clear that all of us are clear in our minds that there is no person who can sit here elected or nominated to support the arrest of another colleague. And let us not mix these two issues, Mr. Speaker. when we speak about the incarceration of members, we have to speak clearly with authority and firmly.
So what's
but
your
when
point
we
of
speak
order?
about other issues, Mr. Speaker, we also have to be clear.
What's
Mr.
your
Speaker.
point of order?
My point of order is very clear, Mr. Speaker. Can the chairperson and the team in that committee put before this House, Mr. Speaker, the invitation so that we can be able to act on it, or what they have used to invite the necessary officers, Mr.
What's
Speaker?
your point of order, Senator Mwaura? Then Senator Dulo. Why don't you speak from where you are, Senator Mwaura?
Mr. Speaker, I really want your guidance so that we make a determination of whether we are now discussing the adjournment motion or we are discussing the report of the Security Committee. So that instead of using points of orders to debate, then it becomes very confusing. So I seek your indulgence, Mr. Speaker, and also having said this, let me just put it on record that this House is the one actually on trial. Because if we allow extra senatorial moves or motions to predetermine how this House conducts itself, I think we are going on a very slippery road to nowhere. Because, Mr. Speaker, there is one aspect here that we may differ politically, and indeed we can differ until the cows come home. In fact, I would want to say that I have come to realize that in politics, people have learned how to hunt with the foxes and to run with the hares. That's the nature of our politics. However, Mr. Speaker, if we allow that this House, based on an opinion of an individual, that you can actually be refused to express that opinion, Mr. Speaker, I beg to differ. As a human rights defender, as somebody who stands for the rights of the marginalized and the downtrodden, I think, Mr. Speaker, we have a wondrous occasion to demonstrate that devolution must be defended, because devolution is the revolution.
What is your point of order?
Mr. Speaker, as I conclude, I want to say...
What's your point of order?
Mr. Speaker, is that... Okay. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, is it in order, therefore, for us to be discussing a substantive motion while at the same time having an adjournment motion? Mr. Speaker, I seek your guidance that you must rule on what debate is actually on the floor of the House, and I support that we should ensure that all senators are protected.
Okay. Then Senator Dulo.
Mr. Speaker, I am sorry to rise again. Those lawyers who are here, like Senator Okongo Omugeni, know that you can go to court on a writ of Habeas corpus. And I want to be listened to carefully. Senator Omotangi,
Order. Let's listen to what Senator Orengo is saying.
Yeah.
Senator Whip, you are so nomadic.
Your Honor, Mr. Speaker, if you approach the court on a writ of habeas corpus, you don't need to be heard both sides. You can go on an application, on an affidavit. If somebody has disappeared or you don't know his whereabouts, the court, in looking at the material that you have before it, can make a decision. Mr. Speaker, this is a matter which you can act so motu or sua sponte, which means that, Mr. Speaker, you made an order yourself, and you don't need to be persuaded that there has been a violation. I urge you, Mr. Speaker, to make a ruling on the question of the violation, and then we proceed to the question of adjournment. Because otherwise we'll be mixing the two. I urge you, let us have a ruling on that question of the violation by the CS and his team.
Okay.